Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to hop on here again and talk about some stuff that hopefully is valuable to you guys. I'm assuming it is because you keep talking about it. There's a Facebook group with getting up towards, I think, 18,000 members last time I checked. And so it's worthwhile to, I think, bring this up again. I've talked about it a couple times, but I think it's worthwhile to bring it up again. So anyhow, my name is Eric. I'm a physical therapist. I enjoy running a lot, and I enjoy serving the running community a lot. So, because I know you guys need this kind of information. I know you guys are looking for it and trying to keep running and trying to be informed about how to take care of yourself. So that's why I do this. And today could be a really long one, but I'm going to try to make it not too long. But plantar fascia and the plantar fasciitis, it ends up being just about the most, if you have pain on your heel, it's going to be diagnosed as plantar fasciitis, on the bottom of your heel. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. And I see it often enough so that the plantar fascia isn't the biggest deal. Sometimes it is and I talk about, if you've seen it in my live streams, I talk about the nervous system and how it can be a pain generator all on its own, sometimes with or without any back symptoms. I remember treating this one guy. It was years ago, but this was another kind of a really eye-opening moment for me when he had seen everybody. I mean, this poor guy who was he enjoyed running, and he would I think he walked around a lot for work. Anyway, bottom line is he had seen everybody. He had seen a family physician, family practitioner doc. He had seen a orthopedic specialist in the foot and ankle. He saw a podiatrist, he saw a chiropractor, and over 2 years, he just wasn't getting a lot better. And so immediately I'm thinking, if you've seen all of these guys, I start to get curious, and I start thinking about the nervous system. And when people have a hard time kind of really simply diagnosing what's going on, and maybe the x-rays and MRIs are negative, and people just have pain still, generally it's the nervous system. Likely it's not so much strengthening, it is the nervous system that's the pain generator. And so and you can still have pain right on the bottom of your heel. And generally, if you look at what people do to diagnose plantar fascia in the clinic, they'll just poke right on the bottom of your heel and say, oh yeah, plantar fasciitis. It's like, no, not all the time. And so was the case with this guy. So I had him lay down, right? He was on his back, and I did what we call in PT a straight leg raise, which is where you keep your knee straight and you mess around with the foot a little bit. So I brought on his symptoms by moving his foot in a certain direction, and then so he started to feel it in his heel, and then I lifted his hip. I bent his hip, so I flexed his foot up, keeping his knee straight, putting tension on the nerve. And, sure enough, it caused his heel pain by moving his hip. Okay. I moved his hip, and his heel pain turned on and off. I kept his foot and his ankle and his lower leg exactly where it was, and all I did was just kind of go up and then back down at the hip. And the pain got worse and better. So I turned off the heel pain by moving his hip. And so, and nobody else looked at that. So I work on his hip and, piriformis, all that stuff. We talk about some other things. And in 3 visits, he has no more heel pain because it was generated, the pain was generated by the nervous system. Now, initially would have been, maybe plantar fascia. Yeah, maybe it was, irritated a little bit. But sometimes when things hang around for quite some time, the nervous system kicks on, even if the other stuff heals. And so the location of the pain point ends up being chronic, and sometimes it's just simply the nervous system. Yeah, funny enough, this doesn't get looked at enough, really. And most of the time with plantar fasciitis, if it's going to be like your true kind of plantar fasciitis, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the foot is fairly mobile. And so when you walk, and you start to progress over your foot on the ground, your foot is supposed to firm up again. It's supposed to be this mobile adapter. It's supposed to absorb shock a little bit when you load the leg. And then right when you start to progress over it, it's supposed to do this mechanical thing and we call it resupinate, to be this firm platform to progress over. But with people that, like my foot, when people have like a too mobile of a foot, it doesn't do that really well. And so as you progress over and as your toes extend, as you progress over this foot, your plantar fascia gets tight and it pulls right at the heel. And so that's generally why people get plantar fasciitis, or they walk with their foot kind of toed out. And so they just crush they walk right over their arch, right? When they toe out a little bit, they walk right over the arch. And so it ends up, splaying the foot a little bit more or too far or for too long. And again, the plantar fascia kind of ends up being, on tension. And that could be anybody with any kind of foot. Yeah, and so the other thing that I've noticed, and now that can be someone with that kind of mechanic can have, a nerve irritability at the bottom of the heel too, and you got to ferret that out. And this is going to be, I hope this isn't going to be a super long live stream. It's already 10 o'clock over on the East Coast, 10:15. But anyway, the people that end up having a nerve being irritated more at the heel is generally the people that have a firmer arch, or an arch that just simply won't, it can be a regular arch height, but it just won't, the foot itself won't absorb shock very well. And so these guys generally have pretty firm calluses on their heel, the ball of their big toe, and the ball of their pinky toe. Like the 3 points of the foot tend to be pretty calloused up on these kind of guys. And people that have that kind of foot generally have the nerve be a little bit irritated. And it's harder, and that's why this plantar fasciitis Facebook group has close to 18,000 people. I think it's these guys that end up having a harder time figuring it out, because they put the sock on, that night splint or whatever it is, that you end up essentially stretching out your calf, or the feeling of your stretching out your calf, and maybe the plantar fascia feeling of it, all night long. But if it's the nervous system does not like to be on stretch. And most of the time it makes these guys either feel worse in the morning, or it just doesn't quite do the job very well. Now for the person that has a true plantar fasciitis on the bottom of the heel, if you stretch out the calf, you don't feel it in the heel, but you stretch out the calf all night long, you should feel pretty good in the morning. And generally that's the case. You're not really getting to the heart of the matter really with that either, but you are making things feel better. So when they hit the ground, they're going to feel better. But when they're walking around, they're still not going to feel that great if they are on their feet for any length of time. So let's talk about treatment now. So the one that has the more mobile foot, you got to match the right foot with the right shoe. And most of the time, also it makes it like stability shoe. These guys need at least a stability shoe generally. If they're really big dudes or big ladies and they need something a little more substantial, that's when you go for the motion control. And you start with a stability shoe for a good platform. And then you go for, if it doesn't quite feel like it does it very well, I'm talking about people that have a fairly mobile foot. Then maybe slide in an extra kind of a firm but forgiving kind of a insert, right? And then if that doesn't quite make it go away. Uh, you start thinking about other things. Like what I would do is I'll start asking them to kind of try on the Hoka roller rocker bottom shoe. Again, I talk about this often enough because I think it's a good segue from being painful to just simply getting out on the road and running again and being able to enjoy it without pain. Um, I'm not, and I don't advertise for Hokas, but they just have they add an extra, um, like rocker is a way to put it, like a rocking chair. So it's more like you have three rockers for your foot the way it's designed. You have a heel rocker, then you have a ankle rocker, and you have a forefoot rocker. So all those kind of rock, they allow you to progress forward. And when you have a pain point, if you have an extra rocker, there's it's like instead of being a quick on off for the muscles and for the joints and all that stuff and for ligaments, it's more like a dimmer switch because it's like this progression that is preserved well without a firm kind of a on off switch, for the muscles and tendons and the ligaments that have to deal with that stuff, plantar fascia in that case too. And so take any kind of rocker bottom shoe that's designed well, stability shoe that's designed well for these kind of guys, that have, plantar fasciitis, mobile foot. You end up preserving progression, and it doesn't hurt as much almost every time. Now, the one thing that makes it so that these kind of problems don't heal well too is that, you see, the thing is, when you're standing and walking, your heel, when it hurts, it gets no off time. It gets 0 off time. Your heel, whenever you're standing or walking or jogging or running or whenever you're on your feet, it gets no off time. It is constantly feeling pressure, and we're asking for it to heal, right? So it constantly gets pressure, and we're asking for it to heal. So most of the time when it's a mobile foot, if you have maybe what would be called a little bit more of a mobile foot, you got to spend time, and really all of your time, in a shoe that makes it feel better. And you can't not do that. You can't. Otherwise, you're going to make it so that your heel won't heal. It simply won't heal. Another good example of this is the rotator, shoulder pain, right? And the rotator cuff gets all spasmy when people have shoulder pain. Your shoulder gets no off time either. That's why people end up with chronic shoulder pain, because if you've ever seen anybody, I've seen them where people have like a really bad stroke, like awful stroke affecting their left or right shoulder. The ball just slides out of the socket and never goes back because the rotator cuff essentially turned off. So your rotator cuff has to be on all the time to keep the ball in the socket. That's how people end up with chronic shoulder pain, because you're asking the shoulder to do something that's painful just simply to keep the ball in the socket. It's painful. It's painful. It's hurting, but it gets no off time. It's the same thing with your heel. So you have to be super conscious of trying to make it feel better, because it gets no off time when you ask yourself, or you ask the heel to allow some weight bearing whenever you're standing or walking or jogging or running. We can't spend any time in something that's not going to make it feel better. We can't. Otherwise, it's just not going to last, or it's going to last for a long time, and the good effect that you give your foot one day won't last for very long, if that makes sense. Let's see what else I want to say. Yeah, so most of the time, I think I said this already, but most of the time when the plantar fasciitis won't go away, it's when the nervous system is either a part of the mix, and there's a need to kind of look up the chain a little bit more through the lower leg, sometimes into the knee, and sometimes at the hip. And also, if people stand around on concrete all day long or walk around on concrete all day long, you're asking your foot to do a lot. And so that's when even a firm foot, foot that doesn't absorb shock well, and you have all these calluses, you know, at your heel and at the big ball of your big toe and the ball of your last toe, your pinky toe. There's a lot of pressure on the heel in that case because the foot won't splay. And so to make it feel better, generally those guys, well, I'll put them in a neutral shoe, or ask them to consider looking at a neutral shoe, because your symptoms should subside a good bit almost instantly when you give it something that it likes. It should be, oh yeah, that feels fantastic, or at least that feels a little bit better. But what these people also need, these kind of, because the foot doesn't splay and the weight of the body's on the heel, you need to allow for the rest of the foot to kind of unload the heel a little bit. And so what I would do for some of those guys is get an arch as well. And you don't have to have a custom made orthotic here. This ends up, I think most of the time, in my opinion, I used to make custom orthotics. I think most of the time you can get something over the shelf, over the counter, and do a pretty good job and last about the length, the life of your shoe at least, if not, beyond that. And I think it's sometimes overkill to ask, for $200-300 for something that, just lasts a year anyways. So anyway, yeah, so what else was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so these guys need a little bit of an arch as well, even though their foot offers a really good arch all on its own. The weight of the body needs to be displaced off of the heel a little bit and onto places that aren't that painful. And so I would have them get maybe an arch that's, still firm but forgiving, on a neutral shoe. Neutral shoe meaning that the foot or the shoe just is very forgiving, and these kind of feet need that kind of very forgiving sole in the shoe, if you allow me to say it that way. But they need another arch support, even though the arch isn't needed to be supported. It's the heel that needs to get some support taken off of it. And so that arch support will help out unload the heel a little bit, so that the arch and the ball of the toe, the ball of the foot, is taking maybe a little bit more of the pressure off of the heel. Yeah, and those for guys for feet that just they don't move a lot. They're not very good at absorbing shock well. And without making this a really long live stream, that's most of it. And obviously for the mobile foot, you need some, generally some foot strengthening and some lower extremity strengthening and some hip strengthening, because your hip and your foot your hip and your foot muscles end up needing to be a major contributor at that point to help the mechanics of the foot, on top of any kind of insert that you can offer it. Not that you need to be in inserts for the rest of your life, but they tend to be pretty helpful just to get people out of their pain and back on the road or trails and running and enjoying life again. So anyway, let me see if got any questions here. I don't think I do yet. A lot of people that came on. Sean, Donald, Tyler, Graham, Chris, Christopher, Brandy, Shauna, Tommy, what's up, bro? Hey, Tammy. Damon, Luke, Chris, Holly, Linda, you're awesome. Love you, sister. Hope you're doing well. I'm sure you are. Brad, I want to say Jerry? Thank you. Marie, hey. Paul and Jana. Jana, I hope you're doing well, my friend. And Marie, cool, you guys. Hope you guys doing well, Southern Cal folks. But anyways, got any questions, give me a holler. I don't know if you guys, sometimes I don't get any questions on the live. They all come back later. You guys got any questions? Got a couple minutes here. Got a couple minutes. Yeah. Well, all right. You guys want any questions? Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm doing it seems like one of the biggest pain points people have is like hip and hammy problems. So I'm going to do a webinar on hip and hammy problems Saturday, 2 Saturdays. Let me look at the date. 2 Saturdays, the 20th at 11 a.m. If you guys want to hop on about hip and hammy tightness or pain or soreness or achiness, whatever you would call it, whatever the pain descriptor is, tends to be something that runs across the board for most runners, and a lot of people that don't run. But yeah, so join us on a live stream. It's going to be here. It's going to be Facebook Live, and just to offer some value to you guys. And yeah, so the 20th, 2 Saturdays, and 11 a.m. Hope to see you guys. Take care, and God bless you guys. Peace.